No! Social Cues by Cage the Elephant does not hold up. I'm sorry, I love Cage the Elephant. They're a fantastic band. They're one of the greatest bands of all time. They're in the top 100, 1,000%. Their first two albums are in the top rock albums, you probably top 50 rock albums of all time. But this is an aggressively decent pop record with rock overtones that fails to deliver anything except for some interesting ideas that aren't really followed through or executed to a sufficient level. I'm currently listening to the record in my ears, and that's just a little bit to get us started. But really, Mr. Internet viewer, Mr. Podcast listener, you're not just getting the answer to that question, but you're getting a whole lot more. So whether you're a longtime rocker who wants to know what Gen Z thinks about music, you want to know what Gen Z thinks about rock, you want to know what I think about rock, Connor Farrell, Lord Farrell to you, or you're a new Gen Z rocker looking for bands and songs, and you want to know what's good, what should I listen to, what should I skip, how do I rock harder, how do I rock softer, we'll talk about that. But today we're going to break down Social Cues by Cage the Elephant. Before we get started, go and send this video to a friend who needs to know more about good rock music. Because though this album, I am not going to recommend to anyone, there are some songs off of it that I will recommend. And especially if you've got some friends who like pop music and who aren't super into rock, some songs off of this might get them a little more accustomed to rock music while still being accessible to a pop, a casual pop listener. So send this video. You got 5 seconds, okay? I'm going to wait for you to do it. It's all good. Don't worry. Don't be feeling pressured or anything. Okay, just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, did you send it? Good. Good. Congratulations. Now, dear internet viewer, when did I first hear this album? I heard this album when it came out. I believe Broken Boy was a single, and I was like, this is fine. Ready to Let Go is a single. I was like, this is fine. It's pop music. It's a little more, idiosyncratic than the last album, which was like campfire grandma music, pop songs that your grandma could like and be like, I'm not your punching bag. I told the story on the review of Tell Me I'm Pretty, the album before this, how my grandma was in the car with me when I was driving in Phoenix, Arizona, and I put on Tell Me I'm Pretty, that album, the album before this, and she started using those songs as her little anthem for the day. And so if you want grandma music, go listen to the last album. This is a little edgier. It's a little more modern, a little more now, a little more 2024. I know it came out in 2019, but it does feel more 2020s. It does feel a little more like, I feel like there's a little bit of an edge where people want to get a little more electronic and a little more Blade Runner aesthetic going along with their vibes and their music and kind of everything that's going along. And so I feel like that definitely gets worked out here. You definitely itch that muscle when you're looking at the album. I'm listening to the album right now. If you see me looking down, if you're on the video experience, that's because I'm looking at the track list and I'm really just thinking, Night Running with Cage the Elephant and Beck, good pop song, fun pop song with kind of like cyberpunk, like paint slapped on to a aggressively fine and just okay, kind of decent pop record. Skin and Bones, you don't need to listen to. Black Madonna, my brother Mark famously would listen to Black Madonna when he was bench pressing, and that was the first time he hit 225, I believe, his freshman or sophomore year of high school, or of college, in UC Santa Cruz, University of California, Santa Cruz. That's where my brother was. And he would listen to Black Madonna and he'd be like, this is cool, this is good. It was his workout song. That's the third song on the record, just for anyone listening. The only songs that are actually notable on here is Black Madonna, Night Running, Ready to Let Go, and House of Glass. And maybe Dance Dance. It's a fine pop record. It's an aggressively fine pop record. It doesn't rock at all. Um, it rocks on House of Glass. House of Glass is the closest thing to like a kind of like poppier, snootier, artsy punk or like rock song. But it feels like it's too snooty and like art school for its own good to where it handicaps itself from being enjoyable and fun. Yeah, I'm like really going kind of quick on this, but like how does it compare? See, the reason I I don't recommend this album, like I mean, here's what this album's good for. If you like pop music and you don't really like rock music, listen to this. This, I guess, technically could be called rock. So this could be a way to get people into rock music. Um, if you know, like other things sound too aggressive for you and you're not ready for that, then listen to this. I mean, I definitely like if you're a pop music listener, I would probably give them Social Cues, and you know that's probably a better entrance for getting used to more rock type of sounds, more punk alternative, metal, garage rock, even like indie rock. Like this will get you familiar with kind of the sounds and kind of maybe more of the lyrical concepts like that. This is a good primer if you just listen to like Taylor Swift and whatever's on the radio. This is a good entry. And then from here, I would get you to go listen to the first Cage Elephant record, which was more like blues rock. Um, but yeah, this record is good for pop music. It's a fine pop record. It's not the best pop record. Melophobia is a better pop record, but the aesthetic on this really is more cyberpunk rock type of thing. It does feel more contemporary. So it does, I don't know. I don't want to just come and shit on this record. If this was supposed to be like the best rock record, I would say this is aggressively fine. These are still kind of sing-songy, only a Black Madonna still, and just kind of like so fine, aggressively fine. And the only part of this that's kind of like sad um, is the band that gave us the first two records of Melophobia. And Tell Me I'm Pretty's fine, but it's not a rock record. It's this is the band not being a rock band. You know, it seems like a lot of bands kind of like they were rock bands when they started out in the early 2000s, and then they stopped being a rock band, and they started being like a pop band with like rock tendencies. But they're like, no, 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 don't worry, we're not rock, we're pop, but we kind of look like rock, so we can market ourselves as rock and roll, despite being a pop band. So there's that. Like it's too like a good example is the Black Keys, like their single for the new album. All the beautiful people say, "Hey," like that's a good pop song. It's not a rock song. Like the songs off, I'm certain the Black Keys still have more rock songs that are in there on the record, but the Black Keys know, like it's pretty clear when you're listening to Black Keys, like some of those songs are rock, and some of them are like more pop. And I hate to be a stickler on genre because it's kind of arbitrary, but it is real though. Like if you look at rock, what does it function, right? It hits you, it's raw, it's guttural, it's it just feels almost intense. That's the word. It has a level of intensity. These songs are not that intense. Night Riding isn't intense. It feels like Cage Elephant and Beck think they're cool. They think they're cool, but not like fuck you, I'm cool. Like ah, it's not like it doesn't even feel like Judas Priest or AC/DC. Like hell yeah, I'm cool. Like upbeat. Um, or like even like Bon Jovi. Whoa, we're halfway there. Whoa! Like that is intense. That is intense music, and it puts you into a space. But you don't get that here. You don't get anything intense. You get things that are light, and kind of fun. Like a good example is Weezer. They did an album called The White Album, where I think it was just called Weezer again, but it's them on a beach and it's all white. And there's a song on there where it's like Summer Bummer or Bummer Summer. And it's like you might think, oh, it's a little bit lower energy, but it's so intense and it's just like you feel Rivers like so sad and so emotive that like it could be uncomfortable to a lot of people. Like that's a good barometer for if something's really intense. Like, does it make other people feel uncomfortable, or it's too overpowering for people right off the bat? Like, that's the kind of thing that I think defines what's a rock song rather than a pop song, right? Because something can just be catchy and good and have a little bit of like some rock sound. But like even like Billy Idol, like in the midnight hour, low, 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 yeah, low, 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 wow. Like it's just intense. It's like, rah, it's there, it's at like 10, it's there, it's in your face, it's in your bones, it's in your blood. Like if you listen to Motorhead, like the ace of spades, the ace of spades. You know I want to gamble, but now, little man, win some, you lose some, it's all the same to me. Like, that's just the intensity, and that's where people go like, oh, punk music, you don't need to be super, like, you don't even have to know how to play your instrument. And then rock music, they'd be like, well, they're not that technical, right? Like a jazz guitar player would be like, look at these rock guys, like, you know, even in like, you know, you're looking at like Blue Oyster Cult or like UFO or Led Zeppelin. There's something that's more that like kind of classic rock type of sound. You'd be like, well, those guys aren't super technical. They're kind of sloppy, you know. And that's because it's the intensity. It's the intensity and the truth and just that voice that comes out. That's kind of more what defines like rock and makes it work. You don't need to be technically proficient or have it sound good. You know what I mean? I think that's why like Frank Zappa, his guitar soloing, like that's the stuff that like really hits me and is like my favorite type of guitar playing and just the best in a live context because he's doing stuff that like he's like, I don't know if I'm gonna hit it or I'm gonna land it. He's not trying to be perfect. He's like, you really feel him like crying and screaming through his guitar when he's silent. And you just feel all the emotion, all the tears, all the years of abuse and beat down and just life and just everything just kicking and the screaming and the raw, like the intensity and heartbreak. And you feel all of that coming through the fucking notes in his guitar as he like, you know, hits a note, but technically someone like one of these prog guys would be like, oh, you didn't have perfect technical proficiency when you executed that. That wasn't perfectly executed. That's why I think someone like Phil X, who's is like one of these guitarists who's like really technically proficient, but he doesn't lose the fact that you like, no, it's not just about can I play his infinite notes and I can play them technically really well. It's like the guitar is supposed to sing and scream and supposed to bleed out through my heart. Like that's what's supposed to do. And so that's kind of like I haven't listened to much Steve Vai, but every time I try and go to, like I don't get like that from him. Right? Joe Satriani, I do. I still get that like Circles or like Surfing with the Alien, that whole record, I kind of get that still. But yeah, just listening to Skin and Bones right now, I feel like no intensity. He's so relaxed and laid back singing it, but not in a way like Morrissey from the Smiths would be laid back singing it and like you can feel something there. Like this just feels like he's going through the motions. He's like, technically I know this is a hook and this is the chorus, and I'm choosing the chords that I know work to make a good catchy song. But I think when you don't have that brutal passion there, it doesn't really stick with you. It might stick with you for like 10 seconds after you're listening, and you might not go, okay, that's a bad song. You're like, okay, that's a good song, but it's not going to stick with you. Like when I like, if I hear like Rebel yell, it can stick with me for like a week, and just every time my brain like kind of like relaxes and I just kind of like nothing's going on, it just comes back in. It takes me there. I don't feel that with this. And I feel like a lot of bands get to that point where they just phone it in and they make records that are fine and get by and they barely meet the standard and they barely pass by. Like Humbug from Arctic Monkeys and Second Sea. That's not nearly close to the standard of their first two records. It's not that. Here's the thing. When you're making rock music or you're making music in general, you're making art, you create a bunch of stuff. You idea, tons of ideas. And then you have to come back and it's like you've made this giant pile of stuff, but then you've got to carve it down into a piece of art. You use your voice. You have creativity, which is coming up with ideas and being free and open. And then you have being the critic. You have your voice. You have you chopping down and whittling things until they're good and perfect and beautiful. And like, do I think the standard for a band is being perfect all the time? No, but I think like having a vision that you're going for and actually like hitting the mark and having that voice be rock, that's what makes it good rock music. Like the Arctic Monkeys' fourth record, Suck and See, has a sound, has something they're going for. It has something they're doing, but I feel like a lot of those should have been demos or B-sides. Those songs feel half-baked. They don't feel good enough. They don't feel nearly up to par, and same with Humbug. That's Arctic Monkeys, but I think here, Cage the Elephant, they have good enough ideas, and they clearly, like, they make the cut, and they make it through the filter on their voice, but their voice just isn't a rock voice anymore. Them as a collective, or just the lead singer who writes things, I'm assuming, he's just not as a rock. When he speaks, it's not in the language of rock anymore. That's fine. That's okay. You don't need to. But I'm not going to call it a rock record. Like Ready to Let Go has distorted guitars on it, but they're quiet, and they've got more like spacey effects, and it's kind of low tempo. So went down, Pompeii, and I'm just listening to it. But like, dude, this is not gaining any fans. No one's becoming a fan of this band because of this record. You know what I mean? No one's like, oh yeah, I heard that song on the radio. Now I really need to check them out. Like, no. But they hear Ain't No Rest for the Wicked. They're like, oh, I need to hear this band. You hear, what is it? Back Against the Wall. Oh God, I ain't got no other place to hide. Change out. Another sitting duck just waiting for the fall. You know, yeah, you got my back against the wall. Like, that is real. That's raw. Another band that has this is like Weezer. The first two records from Weezer are fucking amazing. They're fucking perfect. But then, like, you listen to, like, some of the later stuff, like, the last couple records, Weezer did these seasons, and I didn't even check all of them out, but it got to the point where you're like, he just threw songwriting tricks and hooks and basic songwriting, like, templates, and he copy-pasted them and stuck them together and jigsaw puzzled it. So technically, all of these have enough cool stuff going on, but it's just because he took the list of, like, 20 music composition tricks, 20 different songwriting tricks, like, here's a key change, here's a tempo change into a key change, and he threw those in. Another band that is a good example to compare to what Weezer did on the last couple records is Ghost. Ghost actually wrote really good songs, and it's really distinct, and it's a different style, and Ghost is not accessible, like, right off the bat. I had to listen to Ghost, like, a lot of times before I actually liked Ghost. But with their new record, Imperia, the song Kaiserion is a really good example. Like, it rocks super hard, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it feels real, and the guitar tones, and it feels like they're crying and screaming and singing through the guitars, which is good. And that's what Jimi Hendrix, that's what, like, everyone had, Janis Joplin. That's what these people had even in the fucking 60s. That's what rock was. It's still what rock is. And when the Beatles are doing, she was just 17, you know what I mean, yeah. Like, you can feel, but it was way too long, way beyond repair. I couldn't have. Like, it's that frustration, it's that angst, or it's that triumph. It's something like that. It's that strong emotion. And so with Kaiserion, by Ghost, it's that triumph. And that's what you see. But they throw in this songwriting trick where when they get to the bridge, it does it like almost like a da-doom, 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 da-doom. It goes from like doom, 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 da-doom, 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 and it basically, it goes from the end of the chorus into a riff, and then it changes up the groove and like builds, and then they have the guitar going here, and underneath it, everything swaps into a different key, and this guitar shoots up to the sky for the guitar solo. And it was so incredible the first time I heard it. That's a songwriting trick, and it's an amazing songwriting trick. It's kind of like it's doing that rhythm change thing where you like do the same riff, but then you change the rhythm and you change the pace of it, and then you go into a different groove in a different key. You know, you do a key change, but also you completely change the groove. And then having something playing over a change is incredible. It's my favorite thing ever, is having a solo over a change, or having like one lead going over a change. Like if you think of like, I don't know, there's just tons of songs that do it. But that's using songwriting tricks not to cover up the fact that there's no songs here, there's no rock, there's nothing that's like impeccable. That's throwing in something to enhance something that already has steam, that already has something real in it, right? So that's the thing, is like, I think you have creativity, you have a voice, but then you have that intensity. There's something real there, Something real. Like right now, I'm talking, and I haven't done many of these videos. I haven't done many of these podcasts. And, I'm going to go through a lot of changes in my life. I'm going to be moving to Austin, you know? And, I'm putting myself out there, and, my voice maybe doesn't sound super cool. And I'm on a bulk, and so my face, or I'm coming off a bulk, I'm losing weight right now. My face isn't as like lean in Sigma jawline as normal, and I'm talking a high frequency, and I'm talking quick, and I'm going off the cuff. And that's just real though. And I know if I didn't do that, there's no reason for any of this. And that's the same way I feel about rock records. It's that realness that's what people connect to. That's what people feel related to. And I feel like the guitar solo on House of Glass. I feel that. That's the only song on this album that made me feel anything. And even then, it makes me sad because I'm trying to make it work more than the song actually works. And I'm throwing myself into it because I like this band and I love what they did so much, and they meant so much to me growing up, the first two albums, that I'm just praying and hoping that I can delude myself into thinking they still rock. They're still the people with that intensity, with that voice, with that level of creativity. And they're not just throwing together tricks and like cool sounding production sounds that they got in the studio. Like, oh, look, this sounds like a cool guitar sound, and these go together in a cool way. Like they actually had an idea. And I don't see that here. I don't see them having an idea, and I don't see them holding to a standard. I don't see them fighting for it to be excellent and awesome. And I think that brings a level of intensity too, is just the pure like, no, it must be great. I'm going to make it great. It will be great. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be great, because there is no perfect, because you don't know what it's supposed to actually going to end up being. But it needs to be fantastic. It needs to be great. It needs to be incredible. That's the only benchmark. It's the only music worth making, is incredible music. And if it's not going to be rock and it's going to be like pop, that's still fine, but make it incredible. This is just bad pop at certain points. It's just fine. It's totally fine. There's a reason I haven't listened to this album since I tried to convince myself it was good like 4 years ago. Real talk. I'm listening to it right now, so I've listened to it again. But do I think Gen Z will like it? Gen Z will like it. I mean, it's a good intro album to get people in. Do I think boomers will like this record? No, they'll be like, this is bad and forgettable. Why does this even exist? And I would agree with them. I would check out House of Glass. I would check out the first two records, and I would check out the third record, Melophobia. I wouldn't check this record out. This record's not worth listening to. Record's not worth listening to. It's frankly unimpressive by like any metric. So that's kind of my review. The next review, speaking of a record that's really good, I'm doing a review on Is This It by The Strokes. The Strokes is one of the most famous bands in the world. They kicked off kind of the rock revival in the 2000s, and they are so fantastic and unimpeachable, and their intensity is undeniable, and like the brutal, intense rawness and the creativity in the voice, and even though most of the time their guitars aren't that distorted, um, just the just the almost like screaming, distorted, like crying, hollering vocals from Julian Casablanca, the lead singer of the Strokes. It's so fucking real. It's just a really good comparison. Like here, like I don't feel anything in his voice. The first two records on Cage Elephant, I heard shit in his voice. I heard heartbreak. I heard that. But I also heard triumph and winning, and I heard glory, and I heard pride, and I heard triumph, and I heard, I heard the real stuff. I was watching this movie called Freelance, starring John Cena and Alison Brie, who was on Community. She was Annie on Community. And in that movie, John Cena basically just gets battered and battered, but he keeps getting back up. And at every turn, he can't do what he's got to do or what he wants to do, but he's got to do what he knows he's got to do. And that's that hero's journey. We love the hero who can't have it all. Because that's us. That's real. That's Spider-Man, right? If you watch the original Spider-Man movie, the second one, Spider-Man 2, with Doc Ock, and you see it's that, Jordan Peterson talks about the archetypal mythos of the hero. What's the hero's journey? But it's like that's that's what that's what's real. And anything that's not that we know is not real. And we want that hero's journey. We want that in our music. We want that in rock. And that's what's there in the Strokes. That's what's there in the first two Cage the Elephant albums. But if you want to join me, since you don't need to listen to Social Cues and you've already listened to the other two records, join me for my review of Is This It by the Strokes. I'm going to break that album down, and you're going to find out, does it still hold up? So right now, go watch the Strokes, Is This It? The first The Strokes album. You've got 5 seconds. 5, 4. You got 5 seconds to click on it, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.5, 1 1/4, 1. Oh, are you there? Did you click it? Go click it, okay? I'll see you there. And rock on.